Do these questions ever wake you up in the middle of the night? How am I going to pay for the high cost of long-term care? What would happen to my minor children if something happened to me? If I was unable to make decisions for myself, do my loved ones know what my wishes are regarding health care? Should I have a last will and testament or a living trust? You're listening to Bulletproof Estate Planning with Estate Plan Stan, where we address these questions and many more. Estate planning is not just for wealthy people. I've made it my mission to tell everyone who will listen that estate planning is for everyone. Don't wait until it's too late. Your family will thank you. All right. Hey, what a day. Hot, wasn't it? Boy, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I was out doing some yard work, which is probably not the best thing to do on a 93-degree day. But anyway, has to be done. One of my sons was visiting, and he insisted on doing some of the weed eating because he doesn't think I can take the heat anymore. So, I mean, I can, but a good friend of mine was out in the heat and was chopping wood or cutting wood with a chainsaw, and he got overheated and just decided to power through it. And he ended up having a stroke, and things were never the same after that. So don't get overheated. I mean, I got a pool I can dunk into, and that cools me off pretty quick. So I don't want to take any chances because don't want to end up in the nursing home. And hey, that's one of the things we talk about. Listen, I want to mention a few things before I get started with tonight's topic. First of all, let me talk about some events that are coming up. Got another couple of my free educational seminars coming up, which we call Wills, Trust, and the Nursing Home. Next one is August the 25th. I'm going to have that down here in Pulaski, right on the square at the Star Theater. Going to do it at 2:00 in the afternoon. Just one of them that day. So the next one after that is September the 9th. That's going to be in Lawrenceburg, in Lawrence County, at the WLX radio station. In the back of that radio station, they've got a big old venue called the Country Cafe. Anyway, on that day, which is a Thursday, we're going to have two of them, one at 2 p.m. and another one at 6 p.m. And we're going to talk about, wills, trust, and a nursing home. That's the topic. So if you want to RSVP for that, I'd like to know the head count. The number is 931-363-7222. Or you can go to my website, which is Pierchoskiestatelaw.com. And people have said, well, it's hard to spell your name. I went looking for your website. I had a hard time finding it. Well, we just made it easier for you. So if you want to go to my website, you can type in Pierchoskiestatelaw.com, which is Pierchoski, estatelaw.com. Or you can just type in estateplanstan.com. If you go to estateplanstan.com, that'll take you to my website. They secured that domain name and funneled it right through. So if you go there, you'll get to my site. That's a lot easier to find. So you can RSVP from there as well, or go to my info at Pierchoski Estate Law. That's the email. And if you want to ask me any questions, that sort of thing. The other thing I want to bring up is I get a lot of calls from folks, but this radio station reaches pretty far and wide. I mean, it reaches out pretty far in all directions. And get some folks to say, well, I'd love to come see you, but you're like 2 hours away. Look, if you want to talk to me and have a meeting, what we call a family vision meeting, where we discuss your family dynamics and see what kind of plan might fit what's going on for you folks, we can do anything by Zoom. We do them all the time. Zoom meeting, no need to make a 2-hour trip. I mean, we might want to talk about, if it's a good fit for you. If it is, you may have to come down here at least once. We can even do the signings by Zoom, although that's a little more cumbersome, but we can do it. Sometimes we do that. We did that during COVID, and sometimes we do it when somebody's just not very ambulatory and can't get out. But that's available. So don't let the distance. I mean, first of all, the drive down here would be a beautiful drive. You'd enjoy it. Beautiful drive in the country, but don't let that stand in the way. We can overcome that. No problem. So, all right. Now, talking about having a stroke and having to end up in the nursing home, we don't want that to happen, but that's what tonight's topic is going to be. I'm gonna, if I have to give it a title, I'm going to give it this title. So you have a loved one who needs long-term care? ? Now what? Okay. Now what do we do? I hear this all the time from people. I mean, somebody has to go into the home or gets admitted from the hospital, and they haven't got the first clue where to start. So don't feel bad. Don't, you're not alone. Don't feel like you're missing something. You're not. I mean, I hear from families all the time. They're just overwhelmed by this process of trying to access long-term care. And they feel like they feel like they're doing something wrong, but they're not. These programs are hard to navigate and they're hard to find. Why? I don't know. I'm not sure why the information is difficult to find, but it is. I try to make me not too difficult to find because I can help. But anyway, I mean, our country and our state doesn't make this easy. Um, a lot of times the terms you're looking for, wrapped up in coded words and what we call legal jargon. I mean, there's a lot more to long-term care than just nursing homes too. Um, but I'm going to talk a little bit today because when people go into long-term care, they get a big confusion about Medicare and Medicaid. Now, I want to make sure you understand there's only two letters of the alphabet different between the two. But man, they are way different in what they do, and they are really, really different in what they'll pay for. So, if you don't want to make a mistake, assuming one does something when it does not. Let me go over that a little bit. Medicare, both these came out in the early 60s, 1964. President Johnson was around, and Vietnam was in its early stages. Anyway, we came up with the Medicare Act and the Medicaid Act. And Medicare Act is a federal program. It's created by the feds, and it is the same everywhere. I mean, it's the same for all 50 states. So Medicare in Tennessee is the same as Medicare in Alaska. Absolutely, positively, no difference whatsoever. Now, it works like insurance, okay? So, when you get Medicare, if you've got it or if you're about to get it, I'm talking about, you get your plan A, you get your plan B, you probably have a plan D for prescription drugs. Maybe you have a supplement that picks up the tab on stuff that plan A and plan B won't pay for. So that's what Medicare is. It's like insurance. So if before you get Medicare, you had like Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance or something like that, it works the same way. You pay a premium. It's usually every 3 months. You pay a premium. You got to pay some deductibles, but it works just like insurance, okay? And it's the same everywhere. Now, Medicaid is also a federal program, but the Medicaid Act is like the boundaries of the system, and each state is allowed to operate within the Medicaid boundaries. So, and every state's different. They all have their own names. Tennessee here, we call it TennCare. California, it's CalMed or MassMed for Massachusetts. I mean, you all got a cute little name for it. But anyway, each state has its own individual version of Medicaid, and they range quite a bit different. I get a lot of people that tell me, I was talking to my brother or my sister-in-law or somebody in the family, and they were telling me they can do this and they can do that. How come we can't do that? Well, I asked them where they were, and they said, they were in Indiana or they were in Kansas. Well, that's probably the source of the differences because, the individual states, run things individually. And although it's, they have to stay within the confines of the federal Medicaid Act, they are not, there are some differences. So, basically the state can be less restrictive than the feds, but they can't be more restrictive. That's just a basic canon of law. The feds sort of preempt this area of law. So they're the ones with the last word. So, okay. So Medicare, Medicaid, I'll go into that just a little bit more because what's really important to know is what the two pay for. That's confusing, folks. I get some folks in here sometimes say, I got Medicare. My Medicare will pay for any long-term care I got. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they won't. I don't care what state you live in. You don't have Medicare that's going to pay long-term care. Now, I know what you're thinking. Some of you are thinking that's not true, Stan. I know somebody that went in, they were there for 2 months and Medicare paid the whole bill. Well, we're going to talk about that. That's kind of not what I'm talking about. So don't think that's not what we call long-term care. So we're going to define that a little bit. But, interesting statistic is 60% of all nursing home residents in Tennessee are enrolled in TennCare. So, more than not, 60%. All right. Let's talk a little bit what is long-term care. Well, we got the National Institute on Aging. It's one of 27 national institutes of health under our U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Here's what they define long-term care as. They define it as care involving a variety of services designed to meet a person's health or personal care needs during a short or long period of time. These services help people live as independently and as safely as possible when they can no longer perform everyday activities on their own. Okay, now, when people hear the word long-term care, they often think just of the nursing home. Now, listen, no mistake, nursing home is long-term care, but it's not the only long-term care is what I'm getting at. So long-term care includes a lot more than that. Most common type of long-term care is actually what we call personal care. Services that a person receives in the home from paid or unpaid caregivers. So you got home-based care. Home-based care includes home health care, personal care, homemaker services, friendly visitor or companion services, people that show up, play games with you, and help pass the time, play cards, and emergency response systems. Long-term care also includes services that are outside the home that we call community-based services. So you ever heard somebody refer to Tennessee Choices as home and community-based services? Well, that's what we're talking about, home-based care and the community-based care. The community-based care includes things like adult day service programs, senior centers, transportation services, meals program, and respite care. The community-based care supplements services that are available in the home, making it easier for a person to live at home. Because nowadays, it's most people prefer to age at home, live at home, and get their care at home, rather than in a nursing home. So there's many, many more people doing that now than there was before. So when people are no longer able to live on their own and they need full-time help, then they may require the long-term care in a facility such as the nursing home. So, that's the facility-based care. And that includes the adult foster care, board and care homes, assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and the continued care retirement. That's what they're talking about with the nursing home. But there's a lot more than just a nursing home. Anyway, all these are TennCare. So we're not talking about TennCare or Medicaid. That's what we're talking about, some level of long-term care. And there's two statistics that I think are very interesting, actually kind of scary. The first one is 70% of people 65 years or older are going to need some level of long-term care. You can Google it, you'll get the same number. Now, that means some level of all the care I just mentioned. It doesn't have to be nursing home, it's some level. 70%, that's way past half. And the most frightening statistic is 7 out of 10 of those who go into long-term care will become impoverished within 1 year. So that's a thought that might keep you up in the middle of the night. So we have a statistically better than average chance of ending up there. So now we were talking about being in the nursing home, and I went through the different services because it's just not the nursing home. There's all these other, there's skilled facility, assisted living, home and community-based services. There's quite a few things out there, but it's all considered long-term care. Now, let's talk about the cost. You heard me hit on this before, but the median cost of staying in a semi-private room at a skilled nursing facility is about $84,000 a year here in Tennessee. That's $7,000 a month or $230 a day. Now, just do the math and see how long your estate plan or your nest egg will survive at that, what I call rate of bleeding. I mean, it's catastrophic. The costs are catastrophic, which is why we plan for it. Nobody's estate, if you're independent wealth and you can handle that, well, then you don't even need to be listening to me because you can handle it. Most people are not. Anyway, you can also, I think I mentioned earlier that having somebody come in the home, can be upwards of $43,000, a year. So if you got assisted living, you got somebody for 40 hours a week that assists you with the ADLs. Now, the ADLs are if you hear me say that, those are called the activities of daily life. And there's really 6 of them broken down to as many as 11. Those are things like dressing, bathing, eating, stuff like that. But that kind of assistance in the home has a price tag of about $43,000 a year here in Tennessee, which is $3,600 a month or $118 a day. So these high price tags, being combined with our increased life expectancy, what's that mean? Well, it means that a lot of our Americans like us are outliving our savings. We're having to turn to these social safety net programs to cover the long-term care needs. That's what it means. So, all right, let me talk about Medicare. Now, before we talk about Medicare, I want to make this perfectly clear. I am not a Medicare expert. I don't deal much with Medicare. I deal a lot with Medicaid. But I got a good understanding how Medicare works. But, I don't keep up with it. I don't process it. So if you call me with a Medicare question, I'll do the best I can. But I don't like getting out of my lane too far. Like my wife says, stay in your lane. So probably good advice. All right. Medicare, remember, that's the one that's in the same in all 50 states and acts like insurance. Medicare does not, I repeat, does not cover long-term care or anything that it deems as custodial care. Custodial care is non-skilled personal care, things like bathing, dressing, eating, using the bathroom, getting in and out of bed, getting in and out of a chair, that sort of thing. In the eyes of Medicare, Custodial care also includes the kind of health-related care that most people can do by themselves, like using eye drops and stuff like that. So in most cases, Medicare does not cover custodial care. Medicare does cover short-term nursing facilities in a semi-private room. Now, this is what I was talking about before. So if you got a question and you're going to say, I said Medicare does not pay long-term care. And you're thinking, wait a minute, Stan, Aunt Gertrude, was in the hospital and they sent her to the nursing home and she was there for 2 months and Medicare paid 100% of that. That's right. You're absolutely right. But let me talk about that. That's not what I'm talking about when I say long-term care. So let's say, Aunt Gertrude, she falls and she breaks her hip or she needs a new hip. They give her a hip replacement. Well, after a couple of days in the hospital, they give her the robotic surgery or however and put the hip in. They'll discharge her to the nursing home to help her learn to walk on the hip again, get her gait back, that sort of thing. Now, Medicare will pay for that person's care in a skilled nursing facility up to 100 days. But remember, we're not talking about long-term care. We're talking about rehabilitative services, rehabilitation. So under that program, I said up to 100 days. Under the Medicare program, the first 20 days are covered at 100%. Days 21, through 100 are covered, but the patient has to make a co-insurance payment. And it's usually an 80-20 split. So typically you got to pay about $185.50. And then the Medicare will pick up the balance. Now, if the patient remains in the nursing home longer than 100 days, Medicare will make no further payments for that what they call spell of illness. So, yes, when I say long-term care, I'm talking about over 100 days where you're going to be there. The rehabilitative stay, that it's intuitive there that you're going to rehabilitate and get better and return home, right? Okay, so you heard me say that Medicare will pay for the rehabilitation or for what we call that spell of illness. Okay, that's a Medicare term. A spell of illness refers to the condition, for which somebody is initially hospitalized for. So, let's say you fall and break your hip. Aunt Gertrude falls and breaks her hip. They send her to the hospital. They put her hip back together. She's in there for 3 days. That would be a spell of illness. And so in order for Medicare to cover the nursing home care, you have to have a qualified hospital stay first before you go into the nursing home. So nobody just goes to the nursing home for 100 days. Okay. You got to get there from the hospital. No other way to do it. Otherwise, it's not what they call qualified and they won't pay for it. So now after the 100-day coverage limit, the patient's discharged to go home or, always there for 100 days. Suppose you're there for like 60 days, 62 and a half days, whenever you've rehabilitated, they'll discharge you and they'll send you home. Okay. Now, after that happens, if you remain well enough and you don't need any other kind of skilled care for a period of 60 days, that's good because after 60 days, if your condition declines to the point where you need hospitalization and rehabilitation again, well, then that's considered another spell of illness. So you can have a spell of illness. You can be there up to 100 days. When you get discharged, you go home. If you can stay home and not decline in health and need it again for 100 days, then something else can happen. You go back in, it's another spell of illness, and you can do the whole thing all over again. So, then all of a sudden they're eligible for another 20 days of full coverage and 80 days at the partial payment. There's no limit to the number of benefit periods you can get as long as there's that 60 days in between each spell of illness. So you get that? See how it goes? I wish I had a slide or a PowerPoint I could show you on the radio, but I can't. So I'm trying to describe it as best I can so you can envision it. But all right, Medicare will also cover some of these home health services. And you don't have to go to a hospital before it will pay for some of them, for some of these home health services. And that's often what we see people getting through Medicare. But the kinds of the home health services that are available through the Medicare are things like part-time or intermittent skilled nursing care, physical, occupational, or speech therapy, part-time or intermittent home health aid services. And that's really only as long as you need some other kind of skilled care. So it's somewhat limited that way. All right. I mentioned before, you may already know that, Medicare Part A, you got your A, your B, your C, and your D, that sort of thing. Part A covers care in the hospital. That's the hospital insurance. Medicaid Part B covers the doctor's part, okay? They have a Medicare Part C. I don't think too much of it. I didn't get it. But it's called Medicare Advantage. Those are plans that, they can save you out of pocket costs up front, but, a lot of times those plans, uh, they have lower copays and stuff, but, they make you participate with only certain doctors and, certain places that belong to the specific plan or certain networks and hospitals and stuff like that. It can get pretty limiting. I have some people that get really great plans, but when they need the care, they got to go to Timbuktu to get it, seems like. But anyway, um, all right. So let's get back to this again. Medicare doesn't pay for 24-hour day care in the nursing home. Doesn't do it. It doesn't cover home delivered meals to your home, and it won't cover homemaker services like shopping, cleaning, laundry. Um, you know, when that's the only care that you need. Okay. Remember, we said it wouldn't pay for the custodial and personal care like bathing, dressing, using the bathroom. All that's not covered when it's the only care that you need. When I say not covered, I mean not covered by Medicare. Now, if you need it in addition to something like physical therapy or speech therapy or some other sort of skilled care, then it's possible that they could cover that in the same instance. Okay. So the general rule, Medicare does not cover custodial care, help, cleaning, maid services, that sort of thing. But if you need some other kind of skilled care, like I said, like physical therapy or speech therapy, if you need that also, you can get some of those approved and they'll actually cover those in that instance. So um, anyway, if you want to be eligible for a short-term stay at the nursing home that Medicare will cover, Medicare Part A, that sort of thing for those 100 days. I mean, you have to have Part A and you have to have days left in your benefit period. That's the thing where I talked about the 100 days. Okay. The 100-day limit. You have to qualify. You have to have a qualifying hospital stay first, which is like 3 inpatient days. Okay. 2.5 won't do it. So if they discharge you early, that's a bummer. You're not going to get the 100-day. You're not going to get these covers from Medicare. At least not going to be covered by Medicare. So, outpatient days and what they call observation days do not count. It's got to be 3 inpatient days of a hospital stay and then discharged to the facility. That's when they'll pay. And your doctor has decided that you need the daily skilled care. So anyway, that's Medicare. I could go on and on about it, but it's pretty involved. Let's talk about Medicaid. That's what's coming up next. And I want to get to that because that's what most people really want to know about. So anyway, before I get into the Medicaid part, I was talking a little bit about the Medicare, how they don't cover long-term care. They only cover the short-term stuff. So again, Medicare doesn't cover long-term care. It really only seen as a short-term care at the nursing facility. So in order for services to continue, you got to have a doctor that has to order them continually. The doctor's got to say that it's medically necessary, and getting this sort of long-term care that can be difficult to keep because we see that Medicare will frequently check in to see if the services are still needed and if you are still qualifying for those services at home. So, they don't want to pay these things, so that, they'll keep up on it. So they'll be checking in with the home care provider that you're at and your doctor, and the doctor will say something like, well, are they expected to get any better? Okay, that's the question. Are they improving? Or is this important for maintaining their current level of care? If not, or if it's questionable, you're going to see that Medicare is going to try to cut those services. I don't know this for sure, but I've heard from good authority that if remember I said rehabilitative, you got to be getting better. I've heard that if you refuse, not rehabilitation, if you refuse physical therapy, if you go to physical therapy and you refuse it a session the second time, they terminate just like that because you're not getting better. That came to me from somebody who was in the nursing home, was really sick and really difficult. Physical therapy came around, they couldn't do it. Turned out that the nurses that were there were very, very understanding, and they kind of put it off. And then later on in the day, they come back when they were feeling better, and they did it because they didn't want to have to report that they, skipped it, because that's a refusal. It sounds like a good reason to me, but that's not the way they interpret it. So remember, Medicare only cover personal care and homemaker care if you also have skilled care needs. Okay. Some people just need support. Like I said, taking a bath. That's not reason enough to qualify for Medicare unless you also need one of the other skilled therapies or occupational therapy, right? So, anyway, let me just wrap up this Medicare thing. Like I said earlier, I'm not the Medicare expert. So, don't call me and ask a Medicare question. I mean, let me qualify it. I'll give you the best answer I can. But anyway, if you have additional questions or concerns about Medicare, there's a group called Tennessee SHIP program. It stands for the State Health Insurance Assistance Program. I mean, I've not called these folks, but understand they'll give you some unbiased counseling on Medicare plans that might be best for you. Uh, the number there is 1-877-801-0044 if you want to give them a call. All right, let's shift gears now into the much bigger question, and that's Medicaid. Okay, let's talk about Medicaid. We're talking about Medicaid, or like I said, we're talking about TennCare. We're talking about the Choices Program, CHOICES, Choices Program. Choices is long-term care insurance through the TennCare Medicaid, and it provides long-term care for adults 21 or older with physical disability or seniors 65 and older. Now, when I refer to TennCare or Choices, I'm almost exclusively going to be referring to the seniors 65 and older coverage. I'm not really going to talk much about the 21 years and older with a physical disability. That's not so much what we do here at estate planning and elder law, but there is a form of that for care for those folks. All right, so Choices can get a person in a nursing home as well as certain services to help you remain safe at home and in the community. Okay, so you often hear these like I said, these things are called home and community-based services, or HCBS. Anyway, there's three categories of choices. When you see Tennessee Choices, there are three categories. Category one, or group one, it is the nursing home care. That's the full skilled facility. Okay, that's going to the nursing home. Choices group two. Now that's sort of a full array of home and community based services. Care in the home or assisted living facility. The amount and type of services have to be determined by what they call a care coordinator. Okay, there's when something like that will get involved, and they'll determine the level of what you need. So, but anyone enrolled in Choices program is fully enrolled in the Medicaid or TennCare benefits for the Group 1 and Group 2. So, in Tennessee, our Medicaid programs are services through managed care organizations, or what we call MCOs. I'm trying not to get too technical, and when you get into Medicaid, it is like the ultimate alphabet soup or acronyms. It's just almost like another language. But so we got MCOs. The common ones are Amerigroup, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare. Those are organizations that have contracted with the state to provide these Choices Group 1, Group 2, Group 3 services that we're talking about, okay? Or at least Group 1 and 2. So when you get in, if you apply, if your loved one applies for long-term care, you'll be assigned an MCO and a Choices care coordinator who's going to set up the plan, for that person of care and services. Now we got Choices Group 3. Now that is limited. This is limited. We don't see this too much, but for completeness, let me just go over. It's kind of a very limited home and community-based system. It covers care in the home, but it is very limited. These are individuals that have less intensive needs or requires less hours. I'm not talking about being there 16, 20, 24 hours a day. Actually, that's the cost that Medicaid or TennCare will pay is actually capped at $15,000 a year. So what's that work out to be? About what, $1,200 a month, something like that. That's pretty limited. That's very, very limited, and that's limited care in the home. And it's limited because if you remember, I mentioned before that if you need to care in the home for 40 hours, just 40 hours a week, which is not 24/7, right? It's 25/8, right? It's eight for 5, 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. That's pushing over $40,000. So it's not even that level of care. And the big thing to know is Group 3, this limited home and community-based services. Group 3 it's only available to people who already draw SSI, Social Security, Supplemental Security Income. Okay. So we don't see that too much. It comes up every now and then, but that's what makes it very limiting. It's only available to you if you're already getting SSI. So, okay. Any care that we get in this home and community-based services, it has to be cost effective to qualify. In other words, it can't be more expensive than a nursing home. Okay. So if you qualify for something at home, it can't be something that exceeds the cost of the $7,000 a month that you would get if you were in a full skilled nursing facility. All right, let's talk about qualifying for choices. TennCare is our Medicaid, the choices program. So let's, qualifying for choices, you have to meet both what is called medical and financial eligibility standards. Okay. I mean, it's helpful to think of it as two separate application processes, really. One for the financial eligibility and one for the medical eligibility. Actually, I like to say there's three of them. First, there's three basic all-encompassing things that you have to satisfy to become eligible for TennCare. One is you got to be medically needy. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about that too much, a little bit about the PAE exam that you got to go through, but that's the healthcare professionals and the doctor. They determine if you're medically needy. You don't come to me as an attorney. I don't determine that. I can't. So you become medically needy. The other two are both financial. So the second category that they refer to as financial eligibility is broken down into two. One meaning you got to be income qualified, and the other one is you have to be resource qualified. Now, those of you who have heard me talk before about the tools we use, the irrevocable income only asset protection trust, all these, those are the things we use mostly to deal with the resource eligibility. Income's easy to solve. We're going to talk about that next. So anyway, let's talk about being, the first one, qualifying for, your income qualification. Tennessee's what's called an income cap state. There's about 28, maybe 30 states out of 50 that are called income cap states, which means they have an income cap of $2,382 a month. That's our income cap. And basically the rules say that if you have more income than $2,382 per month, you don't qualify. You're just SOL. But really, in reality, there really is no income limit. Now, that sounds like a bunch of lawyer double talk, doesn't it? But it's a simple fix. Any income that's over the $2,382 a month, we just put into a special income trust arrangement, and we can solve the problem. I'll talk about that here in just a minute. So these are the numbers for 2021, and they change every January 1st. They usually go up a little bit with inflation, stuff like that. So it's 2,382. So, and if you're married people, they're only looking at your individual income, the applicant's income. So if you're married and the husband's, trying to get TennCare, they're only looking at his income, his Social Security, his retirement. They're not looking at the other spouses. And what we do with this income is it's called a qualified income trust. And I think it's really kind of silly because it's really form over substance. So when we have these three things, medically needy, now income qualified, we can solve income super simple. I don't even worry about that. We can do that simple. What we do is we create this qualified income trust. If you want to Google it, QIT, qualified income trust, or Google the word Miller Trust. What it is, we create this irrevocable trust, and when we get our income, let's say we get $3,000 a month. Okay, well, when we get our income, we pay our $2,382, which is the income cap to the nursing home. Everything over that goes into the Miller Trust, and then the money that's in the Miller Trust goes to the nursing home. So I don't get it. I think it's kind of silly because the nursing home ends up with all of it. Why don't we just give it all to them in the first place? So why do we have to bifurcate it at this income cap? Give with the left hand and turn around and give again with the right hand. It all ends up in the same place. It all ends up exactly the same way. So I don't get it. But the good news is it's super simple. If we do that, we jump through that hoop, no problem. We can qualify by the income. So not a problem. The next one that I'm going to talk about, resource qualification. That's a little trickier. I'm going to move on to some other topics, but I said I wasn't going to talk about medically needy, but I was looking at something during the break, and I think I'll spend just a few minutes on it because I remember getting a couple questions about this, and folks don't understand sometimes. Let me give you an example. I had some folks in here, a client that was trying, and they pretty much said, you know what, it's time, Dad, it's time for Daddy to go to the nursing home. So we're fixing to put him in the nursing home, and, we want to apply for TennCare and stuff like that. Well, the thing that's wrong with that level of thinking is, it's not up to you when dad has to go to the nursing home. Okay. It's certainly not a choice. You just don't decide. They have to go. When you apply for Medicaid or going to a nursing home, before you apply, when you get admitted to the nursing home, you get what is called, they call it a PAE. It's called a pre-admission evaluation. anyway, that's the one where they have this scale where they determine medical eligibility. Now, I'm not going to go into it because it's got a bunch of numbers and stuff where they look at like 11 of these activities of daily living, which are really in 6 groups. So when you hear about the ADLs, there's 6 of them, but during this test, they have them down at 11. But they group them together. Like there's a group called both transfer and mobility, and you score that. Whichever one scores the highest is the one they use. So you end up with really 6 of them. But anyway, what it works out is you got to get this score. It's got to be like a score of 9 out of these. They go through each one of these things. I'll just briefly go over what they are. It's like transfer and mobility. And when they score, when you score them, it's like, whether you need help always, or if you need help usually, or if you need help usually not, or if you need help never. And then they score that. It's basically a 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. 0 for always, 1 for usually, 2 for usually not, 4 for never. Anyway, and they come up with this. That's how they come up with these numbers, and that's what they're basing. That's what they're basing on. So, for groups 1 and 2, if you have a score of 9 or higher on this PAE, that's when you get the nursing home level, of course. And you can imagine, you're scoring high on all these activities. I said I was going to go through them all: transfer, mobility, eating, toiletring, incontinent care, catheter ostomy care, orientation, expressive communication, receptive communication, self-administration of medication, behavior. Okay, those are the categories that they're going to score us on this PAE. And that's going to determine whether you're going to need nursing care or nursing home level of care, or the choices group 1 or 2, or the choices group 3. Now, they do have a safety net. They call it the safety determination. So if you fall below the rating of 9, let's say, and you're seeking group 1 or 2 care, you can request what's called a safety determination form. And it sort of supplements the PAE, and it gives the state a bigger picture of how not receiving the services would cause the applicant to be unsafe or at risk of harm. So if an applicant is approved for choices group 3 based on their medical eligibility, the safety determination form can show the state how the needs exceed the limits of the choices group 3. You see what I mean? So if you only qualify for 3, but you need to be in 1 and 2, this is sort of a safety net that you can use. And if you can convince them that your needs exceed what the one you qualify for will give you. Okay? Makes sense? Clear as mud? Yeah, it's a lot of numbers and stuff, but I just want you to know that there's a scaling system that does this. We're not the ones that determine this, how this is done. That's kind of done for us based on our needs, because it's a needs-based system, right? So makes sense. All right. I talk about this. I could go on, but we only got an hour. And I'm going to talk about some of the questions that I get on this particular subject. If you have one, call in 615-737-9986. We've got a few minutes left. But here's some of the ones I hear that may be on your mind, because when people ask questions, usually other people have the same questions. So here's one. If a patient is duly eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid, will Medicaid pay for long-term care? Now, that's what we were talking about before. The answer is yes, but the choices services won't start until the Medicare is used up. That's that 100 days we were talking about. A lot of people that go into the hospital for 3 consecutive days and then get discharged to a nursing home that can be there for up to 100 days aren't going to be there 100 days. They're going to go home. Okay. Now, so that's just Medicare qualified, not Medicaid. Some people, when they go in for that 100 days, we know that they're going to be there. They're not going to rehabilitate. They're going to have to end up staying there. And so some of that time is what we call like an observation period of time, where they're going to make a determination. So there's a person who's qualifying for both Medicare and Medicaid. But again, the Medicare will pay, but they will not pay past day 101. So after that, it's the TennCare that steps up and starts paying if you qualify. So here's a question somebody mentioned. I often talk about assets. When we try to qualify people for Medicaid, or if we do pre-planning, I always talk about an asset protection trust, or protecting your assets. And here sometimes we have a byline where we like to say, ass and asset protection. So and somebody asked the question, what is an asset? and right off the cuff, it might sound, well, that's a silly question, but think about it. I mean, what are we talking about when we talk about assets? Well, assets are, things that you own, not intangibles either. I mean, if you go on a week-long cruise, to Alaska or to the Caribbean, I mean, when you come home, you spent what, $3,000-$4,000, maybe more on the thing, but you don't really own anything. That's what we call an intangible. That's not an asset. That's an intangible asset because it's gone. You enjoyed yourself. You had entertainment. You ate food. You were out on the ocean. But when you come home, you really don't have anything to show for it. I mean, I'm not talking about souvenirs that you bring either. So, what is an asset? Assets are things like your home is. Real estate's an asset. And some real estate we can exempt, but some we can't. Your car is an asset. Money in the bank. If you have a savings account, a checking account, that's an asset. Cash on hand. If you got something stuffed under the mattress, that is, an asset that you have. If you got gold tucked away somewhere, precious metals, that's it. If you got like a diamond collection or a very valuable, Beatles memorabilia collection, that's an asset. Life insurance policies, at least the cash value of them are assets. And assets come in different forms. We have available assets. We have inaccessible or unavailable assets, stuff like that. Those are things that, that would determine whether or not an asset is what we call countable. Okay. So, let's see. Well, listen, we're just about out of time again, and I just want to review these events coming up because we'll have to pick up on some of this stuff next Sunday. So let me just go over what's coming up. First of all, I want to remind you, if you want to try to get a hold of me on the internet, having trouble spelling my name, I get it. But I've solved that problem. If you want to find my website, just type in estateplanstand.com. I mean, it can't get simpler than that, right? Estateplanstand.com will take you to my Pierchoski Estate Law website. That's got my email, my phone number, a bunch of cool reading stuff. You name it. The people that keep up my website do a great job. So there's all that. Also, I want to remind people that if you're a little bit away from me, I'm actually physically located in Pulaski, Tennessee. I go for counties around here. Get up to the Nashville and the Brentwood and the Franklin areas quite a bit, to Rutherford County, Williamson County. We kind of deal with people all over. So if you're up there and you're a little ways off, don't think that's a deal breaker. If you want to give me a call, we can have all these meetings that we have by Zoom. As long as you got a computer. Well, a lot of times I do stuff on the phone. I mean, we can overcome. If you want to make a drive, it's a great drive in the country. Come down here, but if not, it's not a deal breaker. Give me a call and we'll set something up. The other thing is these events I got coming up. My free educational seminars are just that. They're free and they're educational. We don't give you a big old sales pitch. I mean, I do go over some costs of what these things are. I give you some incentives because you come and spend time at my seminar. But, there's no catch. There's no high pressure sales. We even have some refreshments there. My goal with these free educational seminars is to let you know what options you have and that you do have options. And that way you make an informed decision. If what you heard this week has piqued your interest, I'm glad. My mission is to get the message out that when it comes to estate planning, you have options, lots of options. If you have any questions about your own circumstances, I'm more than happy to take the time to answer. You can call my office at 931-363-7222 or send me an email at stan@pierchoskiestate.com. That's Stan, S-T-A-N, at Pierchoski estatelaw.com. Visit my website and check out where I'll be giving my next free educational seminar. My website is www.pierchoskiestate.com. Thank you for listening to Bulletproof Estate Planning, and I am Estate Plan Stan.